There is something wrong with the people who host at MSNBC. Yeah, they're the crazy network that most of your radical woke leftists tune into, but there is something beyond the hosts there pushing the far left radical ideas and rhetoric of the network. What I'm saying is there is something evil about these people. They have preconceived notions about conservatives, or really anybody who doesn't agree with their far left ideology. And they make things up out of thin air based on their flawed preconceived notions. And they have the talent and the corporate money behind them to make what they're saying sound like it's real. But every now and then they let something slip past that mask they put on to make people think that they really are journalists and not just leftist activists who wear suits and drink coffee from mugs with their corporate logos on them. And the truth gets out. And that recently happened. And it was about how much disdain and hatred they have for you because you support Donald Trump. And you understand something they don't, which is that the Biden DOJ has been weaponized against Trump, and it's dangerous. The MSNBC crowd loves it. In the clip I'm going to show, they are invigorated that Trump is being harassed by Special Counsel Jack Smith. Their hatred for Trump and for you becomes clear, and it is so intoxicating to them that they won't even consider any argument that the entire case Smith has built against Trump is entirely flawed. And if you stick with me through this video, we will learn why Jack Smith's case will fall flat on its keister, and it may end up that his very own arguments would get himself indicted. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm going to play this clip now, then I'm going to comment on it and give you my points on how these people are evil. Now, I will tell you something that MSNBC wouldn't, and that is that I edited this clip for time's sake, so that I can get to my point without making you sit here for 6 minutes. Okay, but it's not out of context, and I will put the link to the full video in the description so you can make your own judgment. Here we go.
Thinking about whether it's solemn for me. And I have to be honest, I'm the only one, maybe I'm alone on this. It isn't solemn for me. Because when I think about what Donald Trump did, I think about when he did it. It was 2 years ago. Yeah. And the idea
that was solemn. That day was solemn.
Exactly. And the arrogance of the people
you and me
who felt that they just didn't like the outcome. You know, I'm not sure I believe people when they say they think that he won. Yeah. And I don't believe him when he says that he thought that he won. The only reason he said he won the election was as a pretext to steal the election.
You hear this?
He said that over and over again because he was told you didn't win by Barr and all sorts of other baddies. Correct. So the arrogance of people who went to that capital,
you and me,
you know, that citadel of democracy, of American democracy, and said, not only can I take a number 2 all over the floor of this building. Literally. Not only can I beat the hell out of police officers, not only can I commit those crimes, I'm going to live stream it.
Yep.
I'm going to put it on my socials.
Yep.
I'm so arrogant that you can't choose who's the president. I choose who's the president, right? So I think it's really late.
You and me listening to this garbage, this mental patient spew this crap. Does that not drive you up a wall?
And it isn't solemn for me. This is finally the first time that I feel that Donald Trump is being treated like a normal American.
Can I ask you what the not solemn feeling is? Does it have a name?
Is Schadenfreude appropriate?
Missed that out.
It's a noun, but I got it. Yes. I understand. Yes.
I just want to say I agree with you completely, and I feel invigorated. I do. I don't feel like ecstatic, but I do feel that, again, the water is wet, gravity exists, 2 + 2 = 4. We saw him commit the crime. Yes. This is a man who should have to face a jury with all the due process afforded, a trial by his peers. He should have to submit to the custody of the government he tried to overthrow.
That's right.
He should have to be humbled as a citizen before the law with all the constitutional protections that affords that he tried to deny to us.
Unbelievable, right? You know, when you think about it, Trump was already acquitted for inciting what Democrats called an insurrection. He was acquitted in the Senate, if you remember. Now Democrats want to try him again for saying that he wanted people who attended his rally to march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol to let their voices be heard. Now, Joy Reid and the rest on that panel are saying that they're invigorated and they're feeling pleasure at seeing Trump being indicted and put through the ringer. Joy mentioned Schadenfreude, he ruined the word, which is pleasure derived from another person's misfortune. But I think it's worse than that when we take a look at what's really happening on the left. It's been gradually building over time, and I think that they're at a dangerous point for our republic. We constantly hear from leftists like the MSNBC mental ward that Republicans are violent. They're a threat to their democracy. We don't live in a democracy, but I'll stipulate that Democrats and leftists are allowed to be stupid. Hannah Arendt wrote of the banality of evil. A lot of people talk about it, but many don't really understand what it means. It is the experience of an abyss, a lack of common measure between a gigantic scale on which the crimes, the evil, were committed and the insignificance, the banality of the people who were among those most responsible. Now, banality means something that is so lacking in originality that is both obvious and boring at the same time. It refers to things that we take for granted, like you use a fork to eat food. A pencil lets you write things down. There's no real significance to these things that makes them a topic of eager discussion because they're just not thought of. Another example would be the way that most people think of insects, like cockroaches. Like you're repulsed by them, so you would step on them, and it doesn't even bother you that you ended a life. And see, the point is that when you hit the banality of evil, that you find that you can do things that are so horrific that normal people would just be aghast and would just run screaming. And yet you find absolutely nothing wrong with it. Now, by all means, don't get me wrong. I am not comparing MSNBC with the Nazis. What I'm doing is trying to show examples of what the banality of evil is and how in America, the left is leaning towards going down that road. Now, Arendt was writing about Adolf Eichmann and how he orchestrated some of the worst crimes against humanity by the left-wing Nazis' treatment of the Jews during the Holocaust, who were defenseless, poor, and insignificant to him. If you ever watched the movie Schindler's List, there was a scene where two German officers came into a munitions factory. There was a Jewish man who was there making bullets for the Third Reich. The officer asked the man to make a bullet right in front of him. While the Jewish man was expertly making that bullet, the two German officers were talking to each other like it was, everyday bullshit they were talking about. And then once the Jewish man finished the bullet in what seemed like a miraculous amount of time, the German officer pulled his Luger and accused the Jewish man of slacking off at the job the day before because his output numbers were extremely low. Now, without thinking, the German officer aimed the gun at the man's head and pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. So the officer continued to try to unjam the gun, and he continued to pull the trigger at the man's head. But the Jewish man the whole time was explaining to him that the day before they took him off the machine because it had to be recalibrated, and they put him on another work detail. Now, the officer didn't even listen to the man because the banality of evil said that he was so insignificant and that the German officer's preconceived notions of such an insignificant thing as a Jew didn't matter. In the end, the German officer gave up trying to shoot the man in the head and smashed him in the head with the butt of the pistol anyway. Joy Reid and the rest of the cretins on that panel often speak of these so-called MAGA Republicans, American citizens who support Donald Trump, with the same banality of evil that Hannah Arendt spoke of. In their minds, they believe that Donald Trump set out to steal an election, even though there's no evidence of such things. I did a video yesterday showing with real examples how Donald Trump said throughout the entire 2020 election cycle that he had concerns for election fraud because of the millions of ballots that were being mailed out to people that they didn't even know who they were going to. But Joy Reid and Chris Hayes and the rest of the numbskulls at MSNBC look down on middle-class and working-class Americans like that so much. Reid has put the word out on her show that white nationalism has infected the Republican Party. In other words, she told all of her supporters throughout the country that if they see a Republican, they're looking at a white nationalist. Ooh, what could go wrong, right? That's the kind of hateful rhetoric she is known for throwing out on that failing network. Now on to Jack Smith, the special counsel. He has built his entire case on the argument that Donald Trump knew that he lost the election, that he tried to steal it by overturning it with the force of government. You just heard Reid say the exact same thing. And Smith is basing his argument that Trump knew he lost the election because Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency told him that it was a pristine and totally fair election. You remember that? You remember how everyone in the fake news media was citing that? They all said that even his own Homeland Security experts in the cyber division told him that there was no election fraud. But then we had this thing that was called the Twitter file, where Elon Musk ordered the dumping of Twitter documents that showed that the very same Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency was then working with social media companies, ordering them to censor anything about the 2020 election. You can't make this stuff up. So in a real court, not one in D.C., but in a real court, Jack Smith would be laughed out of the courtroom and could be up for charges himself, because when it becomes known that he based his entire argument of the case on the fact that Donald Trump knew that he lost the election because he was told by an agency that was censoring American free speech about any irregularities in the 2020 election. Are you fucking kidding me? And the other part of it is that Jack Smith said that Donald Trump's speech incited a riot, which they called an insurrection, and said that since he was told he knew that the election was stolen and that he lost, he lied to the American people when he told them that it was stolen. Now, the Supreme Court has already ruled in the past that it is protected speech. Now, I'm not saying that Trump lied, because I don't believe he did, because every piece of evidence out there shows that he truly believed that he won and that the election was stolen from him. But here's the kicker, folks. If Jack Smith says that Donald Trump can be charged with a crime over free speech because, in his words, Trump lied, then Jack Smith could be indicted for the exact same thing. Why? Because when Jack Smith wrote out in the indictment Trump's speech from that day, where he said in the speech that he incited a riot, Jack Smith intentionally left out Trump's words where he said, "And now we will march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol to let our voices be heard." He cut that part out of Trump's speech in the indictment. In other words, Jack Smith lied in the indictment against Trump, where he says that Trump should be tried for a crime for lying, which is actually protected under the banner of free speech in the first place. You can't make this shit up. And the banality of MSNBC and the people who watch that network, they don't care. You could show them the indictment, read all the way through it, the script, and then show them the video and prove to them that it was edited out. They wouldn't care. I mean, don't you think that the part that Smith edited out of the indictment of Trump's speech is pretty important? Isn't that exculpatory evidence? Well, withholding exculpatory evidence is what Jack Smith is known for. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.